Hi everyone, and welcome to tonight's webinar, Making Teens Matter, KidsMatter Tips for Growing Successful Teens. It's great to be here with you tonight, and I can see that everyone's active on the chat already, so it was in for a really great night with lots of discussion and reflective practice that we can get involved in. I'm really excited actually, because tonight, it's hard to imagine, but a year ago tonight almost, give or take a couple of days, we actually stepped into the world of webinar for the first time at KidsMatter Early Childhood. So we're back for a second series, and there's a calendar out soon, and we'll be popping up some announcements throughout the night so that you can find out where they are. For those of you who are new to KidsMatter Early Childhood, I'll just give you a little rundown of who we are and what we do. We are a national mental health initiative, and we support early childhood education services and schools in making changes into their practices and across their organisations to support children's mental health and wellbeing. We're funded by the Department of Health and Beyond Blue, and we've grown into what we are today through a great partnership between Early Childhood Australia, Beyond Blue and the Australian Psychological Society. So we're going to move on to meet Leanne shortly, who's going to be our presenter tonight. But before we do, I would like to acknowledge that tonight we are meeting on the many lands, and I would like to pay my respects to the elders past, present and future for their continuing custodianship of the land and the children of this land across the generations. Also tonight, I'd like to ask you to reflect about how we can draw on our understandings of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander ways of knowing, being and doing, especially in relation to teens. And I guess one way that I've been thinking about is around connections. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander ways of knowing and being and doing around creating connections between and within families and across country and across communities are very well connected, and they communicate well in lots of different ways around those areas. So I'd like us to think about different ways of knowing, being and doing from an Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander perspective as we progress through the night. Because teens, we do have connections, whether it's through goals, values or places. So just popping up on the screen, tonight we're going to be looking at teens from a number of different perspectives, and some of you might be watching tonight's webinar with your teen, or you might be watching it on your own, but we'll be asking you to consider your teens that you're working in. So I'd like you to just be mindful of how you're feeling and to take care of yourself, and if any tricky feelings come up, to make sure that you have a chat to someone and talk to them about it. Just a couple of housekeeping things as well is that you can actually go for your life in the chat box, but you can actually mute it and put it away for a little bit if you find that it gets too busy for you, just by clicking the little arrow that's in the side border of your screen. So you can adjust the size to make it as big or as small as you like. The same with the little announcements that have popped up. You'll see down the bottom there's one about our blog. That's where you'll go to collect some information maybe at the end of tonight, and eventually that's where the recording of tonight's session will be. You can actually remove those announcements by clicking the little X at the top of the right of those little announcement boxes. So we're getting to that time where we'll be getting lots of polls happening and different questions that will be popping into the chat. But to help us along with that, we've got Leanne from Northern Territory. She's the facilitator in the Northern Territory for KidsMatter Early Childhood, and Leanne's worked in a number of different areas and different spaces in regard to early childhood education and care. How are you going, Leanne? Oh, Leanne,
I'll just unmute myself. It's fantastic to be here. Thank you very much, Amelia, and thanks everyone for joining us today for our webinar.
Yeah, and I can see we're going to look at teams from a lot of different perspectives around how we define a team, getting to know our own team, and the different strategies that we can use to develop and grow our team, and also maintain our well-being within the team and of the team through change processes. So I might just hand over to you now so that you can get the ball rolling.
Okay, so in the chat, we've been thinking about what is a team. Let's have a look. There's There's quite a few responses actually. So Lynette says being in a team means that you might not always agree on a pathway or achieving a goal, but you often have the same goal in sight. What else? Being in a team, it's not quite likely you'll be, sometimes there's conflict as well too. And there's a collaborative group who develops shared visions, equity and believes in one another to reach their goals. So thanks very much everyone for adding your thoughts there. So we'll have a look here. This is a quote out of a book called Leadership in Early Childhood Education Settings by Gillian Rodd. And she defines a team as a group of people who cooperate and work. Oops, sorry about that. Who work toward achieving an agreed set of aims, objectives or goals while simultaneously considering the personal needs and interests of individuals. So we know that working in early childhood education and care states that we need to have the ability to work as a member of a team. So our job's not just working with children, it's working with families. It's also as part of a team as well. And this teamwork can actually have a major impact on the work that we actually do with children. Gillian also says that effective leadership coupled with opportunities to contribute through teamwork is a critical factor for increasing self-esteem, job satisfaction and morale, as well as reducing stress and potential burnout, all of which contribute to high quality. So what does the National Quality Standard say about teams? So quality areas 7.1 and 7.2 are actually the most relevant to teamwork and leadership, and they pose some interesting reflective questions. So you can see a list of words that I've actually taken out of the National Quality Standards guidelines. Some of those reflective questions: how are we developing a positive organisational culture? How are we developing skills and the capacity of our team members? How do we create opportunities for professional conversations, and how can we share the collective knowledge of our team? How do we maintain a culture of ongoing reflection and self-review, and how do we provide motivation and support? Now I'm just having a look in the chat. Yes, the team is listening and respecting as well. So let's consider who's in our team. So I'd like you to think now about a team that you might be working in at the moment. So what defines your team? So who's in your team? Is it your whole staff? Is it perhaps a smaller group of people? You may even be your KidsMatter leadership team, or perhaps just the people who work closely in your room. Other people who work with you towards team goals, you haven't considered to be part of your team as well too. How old is your team? So we're actually part of a new team every time someone enters our team, and also when somebody leaves. So don't forget those team members and try to keep them up to speed and make sure that they feel welcomed as well. Are we a team? Are we working as a group of individuals in our own way? Are we effective in what we do? How are we going to find out? So what we're going to do now is just have a look in more detail about team structures. And before we do that, I'd like you to actually consider how many people are actually in your team. So Amelia, let's do a poll and find out what sort of team structures we've got out there.
We'll just pop the poll up. And there's one thing I forgot to mention, so I'll just give a big shout out to, there's a few other people that are coming up blue in your screen, and they're people from our KidsMatter team who are actually helping us tonight to help answer some questions. If anyone has any that come up now, I'll pop the poll up so we'll get everyone to have a quick answer to that. But so I'd like to say a big hi to Glenda, Janelle and Penny as well, because they're part of our team and they're helping us answer any questions that people have, and also pose some questions for you throughout the night too. So we'll give it a little bit longer. And I can see we've got a combination of people coming up. I'll just stop the poll now. Oh, it's still changing a little bit. Okay, I'll stop it now. And I'll pop the snapshot up to everyone. So that'll be, we'll actually be able to make all these available to people as well. So, it's great to see that there's people here from across all the different ranges that we've put. Do you want to have anything to add to that, Leanne, at all?
It's really interesting, actually. So we've got a range of, just a couple of people in a team, 3 to 5 people. So it's interesting because it really does impact on how people work in teams. So sometimes, even though it might be a smaller team, it may not necessarily be easier to work in a small team as it is in a large team, and vice versa. So keeping those teams in mind, everybody, as we actually work through exploring more about teams and how teams operate and function, and what we can do to actually help support people in teams.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So as we discuss how teams operate, it's also good for us to, sorry.
That's all right, I fixed it up for you.
Oh, thank you. Also think it's a really good idea for us to actually stop and reflect on our own role. So when we're talking about teams today, I don't want you to sort of think that it's all about leadership. It's all about each individual person who's actually part of that team. So, and their contribution as well too. So how am I going personally? What's my role and what's my contribution? You could perhaps even take a survey and see what your character strengths are. Via Strengths Survey is a free online tool, and it gives you the opportunity to learn more about your character and your personality strengths. So it only takes about 15 minutes, and it can help you to understand your strengths and what areas you could develop even more. So it might actually help you to understand how you can actually work more as be more successful in teams yourself. Now, our Facebook page, we recently, or I hope everybody's actually a member of our Facebook page and liked our page, because we have some fantastic posts that go up there. Our team of KidsMatter facilitators take turns to actually share some fantastic news and ideas through our Facebook. So what I want you to do is have a look at it. And recently we put a little sneak peek of our Getting Started videos. And Stonehouse was talking about us being self-aware, to appreciate our own strengths and know what challenges us. We need to take some risks and not be afraid to fail. Everyone is a learner. So there's many different ways to get to know your team. Some I've used in previous workplaces, which have included Myers-Briggs, Champagne-Hogan, Belbin team roles, 360-degree feedback, and team management system. Now, someone's also mentioned about, do I have a link to the survey? But we'll have a document that'll have all the resources that we're mentioning today. So that'll be available as soon as the webinar's finished, and that'll be emailed to you. So some of these tools that I've mentioned can actually be purchased, and some of them actually have been modified for as free online resources as well too. So I'd like us to listen to a podcast now from Rosebery Primary School in the Northern Territory. They're a KidsMatter school, and they're going to share with you one of the tools that they've used to help improve teamwork in their school.
So we're just putting that up now. If you've called in, you won't actually hear it, so we've popped a transcript link up for you. Just play that now for you.
Our school is a very new school. We opened in 2011. We purchased the team management system over 5 years ago and use it regularly as a whole school approach. Our school is a very new school. We opened in 2011. We purchased the team management system over 5 years ago and use it regularly as a whole school approach. Each staff member completes a team management profile questionnaire which identifies their team management style. The result is a team management wheel. Our roles on the team management wheel are identified from our preferred approaches to work in 4 different areas. 1. How we relate to others. Are you an introvert or an extrovert? 2. How we gather and use information. Are you practical or creative? 3. How we make decisions. Are you analytical or do you follow your beliefs? 4. How we organise ourselves and others. Are you structured or flexible? These results are then collated as a whole school. Our leadership strengths are identified and a spreadsheet is created so that our colleagues can see how to approach each other according to our preferred approach. For example, some people may need additional time to process information. Others are very creative or might be introverted or extroverted. This way we can respect and appreciate each person's individual work preferences. Using this tool has allowed our school to develop a deeper understanding of the varying personalities and work styles of our colleagues. This information is displayed in our staff room so that team members can be reminded of preferred work styles. This helps during staff meetings and conversations. Rosebery Primary is a co-teaching school, and this approach has allowed our teaching partners to better understand our co-workers' work preferences.
Excellent. So as I mentioned earlier, if you were unable to hear the sound, we have got a transcript that's available to you, and on the night, if you go back to the recording afterwards, you'll be able to hear it as well. We'll make sure all those things are available on our After the Webinar blog. I'll hand back over to Leanne now so that she can lead us on to the next section of Knowing Our Team.
Thanks, Amelia. I just want to acknowledge Karen from Rosebery Primary School for her assistance and her team for sharing their story this evening as well too with us. Let's have a look at how the stages of team development. So we know that teams can change quite frequently. So some people might be familiar with the Tuckman's model. It was designed to describe the path that most teams follow on their way to high performance. So the first stage of that is forming, where most teams are positive and polite. They start to get to know each other, but they can be anxious as team members' roles and responsibilities are not always clear. The next phase, storming. People start to push against the boundaries established in that forming stage, where many teams can fail. Differing work styles can cause some problems, and often people are questioning the team goals. There may be resistance in taking on new tasks, which sometimes can cause stress. The next phase is norming. People start to resolve their differences and they appreciate colleagues' strengths and respect the authority of the leader. They might socialise, ask each other for help and provide constructive feedback. There's also a stronger commitment to the team. The next phase is performing. Work leads without friction. Work's easily delegated and it feels easy to be part of a team. There's also a flyer that in our Mental Health Matters website as well too, called Group Dynamics Happen Over Time, and there's also more information and details about the Tuckman model there as well too. What I'd like to share with you now is an experience, one of my experiences of working in teams as well. So I have been a classroom teacher for the last 11 years. Prior to actually KidsMatter, and one of those years, actually a few of those years actually I was working in transition. Transition here in the NT is the first year of school, so 5 and 6 year olds. So I worked in a really strong team with about 2 other teachers. We worked collaboratively, we shared the workload, and we went from forming to storming to norming over a period of about 6 months. And then we moved into the performing phase throughout the rest of the year and beyond until our team changed. So we actually moved up pretty quickly, and that's not normal. I've worked in teams where we actually just toggle between storming and norming. What happened then is I actually moved down to preschool. So our preschools are 3 to 4 year olds, and there were only 4 people in that team, and we had two of those members were new. So we were forming a new team. So it took a lot of time. There were many changes given the different work styles and the experiences of the team as well too. We went from forming to storming, and occasionally we'd move to norming, but we toggle between storming and norming quite a bit throughout the year. We never made it to performing, as there were many changes. There were a few factors, including staff absences, staff leaving and joining the team as well. And these changes had a great impact on our team dynamics and the performance as well too. It was a real challenge for me coming from a team that was high performing, but I learned a lot. With support from my leadership team, I was able to greater understand my role in the team, as well as develop a range of strategies to help support team development, some of which I will share with you during this webinar today. So I'd like you to take some time now to reflect on your teams, regardless of what size they are. What stage is your team at? Forming, storming, norming, or are you performing? Or you might even be in between.
So people are popping in their entries, and there's the early leaders at the moment are the between choices that we've offered up tonight, Leanne. It was interesting as you were talking around the transition from a different size team, and it was something we looked at earlier, and I imagine there were probably changes in the amount of things that needed to be done by the team and the shared responsibility as well that would have been integral in adapting and changing in those ways. So I'll stop the poll now and see what people have put up.
Oh, that's good. There's some really high-performing teams there, which is really great to see. It is quite unique, so it's not. Sometimes you won't even get to the performing stage, so that's quite normal.
Yes, because change can get in the way, can't it? And all sorts of changes can happen, and sometimes change is often a positive thing, but it's also those unintended consequences as well that come up.
Interesting, there's a question here from Renee. So if you're not moving from storming and norming, is it time to change the team? So interesting you asked that, Renee, because what we'll do now is we'll actually move on to the next slide where we'll talk about how we can actually move our teams forward.
Excellent.
So some of the strategies we can use. So the forming stage, we can help to direct the team, establish some clear objectives as well. And again, as I said, don't forget this is not just leadership; it's every person in the team to actually help move the team forward as well too. During this, to actually help your team to go through the storming phase, you can establish the processes and structures for your service, resolve conflicts swiftly, so that people don't brew on issues, help to build trust and good relationships, which is really important. And the KidsMatter Framework, trust and relationship is the foundation of mental health and wellbeing. And remain positive when some changes occur. To help move to norming, help the team members take responsibility and perhaps you could arrange a team building event, or just either a night out, or just something that your team enjoys doing. And to move to the performing stage, delegate tasks and projects as much as possible. Begin focusing on new goals so that each team member doesn't become stagnant in their work and they actually feel like that they're valued. Yes, it would be great to hear some of your ideas. Thanks, Amelia, for that. I'd like to share with you one of our KidsMatter action charts. I'm not sure if people have actually had a chance to go onto our website and download our action chart. This one here is about strong connectedness, and we know that it's really important for us to have strong connections to the children we care for as well as the families, but it's really important to actually have a real strong connection with your team. So on the back of those action charts, there's actually some reflective questions on how you can actually help support and develop those strong connectedness as well too. And again, those links will be available in our flyer, in our resources flyer as well too. So let's consider other ways that we can connect with our colleagues. Anthony Saman wrote an article about thinking outside the box, and he talks about organisational culture. So we need to provoke provocation as it stimulates conversation, invite people to justify current practices and allow new ways of thinking. Allow them to ask questions. What are the challenges? What might be a new way of thinking about our work? Make space for innovation and allow people to step away from their day-to-day work. Make allowances for them to think about innovation beyond their current role. Remain curious about what's taking place. It keeps our brain hardwired for more information. Embrace ambiguity. This creates a space for people to think and play with their ideas. We don't always have to know the answer to every problem, but we need to be open to finding out what that answer is. Create spaces for debate. They don't need to lead to arguments. You could present an idea during a staff meeting and perhaps invite people to debate the idea until all sides have been exhausted. Ask hard questions. It invites hard answers. Embrace the idea that thinking deeply about our work is what it takes to make a breakthrough. Don't shy away from challenges. As I mentioned before about new staff, ask for their insights because they have a new perspective. Don't shut down their ideas by saying, that's not how we do it here. Embrace their freshness and their insights. Implement divergent thinking. Invite people to think outside the box. Refrain from saying, we've tried that before and I don't think it'll work. You never know the success of a new way of working unless you give it a try and keep trying. So what other things have you done to seek input? Let's have a look.
I'm going to just jump in there, Leanne, and tell you that Tricia, at their place, they use fish. And I love fish, so I just wanted to let people know that.
Good. Be interested to know a little bit more about that one. So, there you go. Well, let's explore some features of a collaborative team. So, Julie and Rod also mentions about having a shared vision and shared values and shared personal experiences. Providing diversity and complementary knowledge, skills and experience. Having open communication by having active listening, assertion, problem solving and respect for the perspective of other people. Also respect, consideration, friendliness, empathy. Provide honest and tactful feedback about achievement of common goals and agreed performance standards. Allow inclusion, collective responsibility and mutual accountability. So how many of these could you tick off?
Just pop the poll up now so that people can also have a think about which features your team might actually like to look at focusing on in the next few months or so. If there is one area that you would like to work on further. So I guess coming back to there's been some great conversation going on in the chat, and we've had Janelle, one of our team members. She's asked a really interesting question as well, Leanne, and it's asking about, are all members of the team always at the same stage, or do we look at it at a holistic sort of way?
I mean, obviously, if it's just one person, then it's not really a team, is it? So it's how everybody's actually working together. So if you want people to be cohesive and collaborative, it needs to be a team approach. So you might have some people wanting to push forward, but how actually are we going to actually help those other team members to actually join the journey and move forward? So I guess that's what we need to be thinking about.
So it's those connections in between. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So I'll just stop the poll now and share it with everyone. And what we've got happening is lots of people are looking at inclusion and shared vision. That's probably been the overall winner, but we've there's lots of different responses that have been popped up.
Yeah, and you know, even if it's also sharing perhaps simple things like the quality improvement plan as well too, if people are working in services, making sure that things are transparent so that people know exactly what's going on. You don't need to overwhelm them with too much information, but you know, making sure that people actually have input.
Yeah. One of those, and I haven't sent this through to you yet, but Leanne, but Lynette and Anne, they both agree that the point around mutual accountability is a really important aspect as well, and I agree too. And that's something that does take work as well. So I'll just close off and I'll leave you to it again. See you soon, everyone.
Thanks. So we've discussed the features of a good team, but we also need to consider the workplace as well too. So what makes a healthy workplace? A leading expert in the field of occupational health defines a healthy workplace as one whose culture, climate and organisational practices create an environment which promotes employees' mental and physical health as well as productivity and organisational effectiveness. Some of those features include having a healthy workplace increases morale and job satisfaction. It can boost performance and productivity, can contribute to better employer and employee relationships, and reduce absenteeism, sick days and healthcare costs. More than this, having a healthy workplace helps you to attract potential employees, can actually help you retain your best people and develop a strong sense of identity. But what do we do? How are we going to develop and maintain a healthy workplace? Perhaps you might like to share your ideas on what you do at your service. So some of the things we need to consider are the physical environment. So have a walk around and really having a look. Is it uplifting and motivating, or is it drab and uncomfortable? Is it too hot or cold? Start making a list of improvements that will turn your environment into a more pleasant and energising place to work. And ask your team for input as well too. Meet with your team, perhaps one-on-one. Ask them about their career goals. Identify ways that you can help them grow and develop. Perhaps find them a mentor as well too. I know that in my experiences working in early childhood education and care, a mentor can be a fantastic tool for you to actually help to clarify your ideas and to learn and develop as a leader and as an individual as well too. Encourage team members to take on challenging projects that will help expand their skills. Perhaps you could even join or form a KidsMatter leadership team. Reward the team on a regular basis. Don't forget to say thank you and be present. Recognise the team, the work that the team members are actually doing. Allow some autonomy for members of the team. Perhaps delegate tasks, encourage feedback and think of some creative ways to involve staff as well. Encourage each other to take breaks away from the workplace or outside. Try to leave work at work. And I know we're often told that, but sometimes it's a little difficult in our field. But we also need to make sure we keep an eye on the team so that members don't suffer burnout. If you want to make your workplace healthier, you need to spend some time working on these 5 areas. So Amelia, let's have a think about what does everyone's workplace do best?
Yes. So we've got the 5 areas, and we've also popped a little other in there in case there's something else that, as you were talking, Leanne, that people thought, well, our workplace does this really well as well. And I guess it's going very quickly. There's lots of things that I'll give it a little bit longer before we stop it. I'll stop it. Everyone put their last bits in now. Stop it. So pop that up for you. So there's the result. So physical environment is what people think have done the best, and the other ones there's a little bit it's fairly even spread across the board.
I guess the thing is also it's not just if you're working in an early education and care service, not just the area where you're working with the children. But what about the staff room? Have a think about that. Do they actually have a really nice place for people to actually go, a little courtyard or something like that? Growth and development, that's great. We always need to make sure that we're mentally stimulated as well too, and life balance. Yeah, good. There's some areas of improvement for people, so it's really good to see.
Yeah, and also when we're looking at making changes, it's good to come from that strength place as well, isn't it? So that to see what we are doing well, because we can either improve on what we're doing well already, or we can celebrate as a team, and before we're moving on to the trickier areas where we need to make some decisions about what changes need to go into place. So I'll close this down again and I'll pop off and be back when you need me again, Leanne. See you soon.
All right. Thanks, Amelia. All right. So we've talked about healthy workplaces, but what happens when change occurs? Well, we know it's inevitable. It's necessary and it's natural. It's one of the few certainties in all aspects of our life. So many of us in this field have encountered changes in staff, changes in the curriculum, changes in our practices due to the changes in the framework, perhaps even changes to the groups of children you care for, changes in age groups or rooms that you work in, and I'm sure there's many, many others. Some people see it as a challenge with benefits, others are threatened and feel that they are quite resistant to change as well. Our role is to encourage, support and strengthen positive attitudes and a willingness to engage in change. Now I'd like to share with you a story from Nightcliff Early Learning Centre. They're a new KidsMatter Early Childhood service who have engaged just not too long ago. And again, we've got an audio, so hopefully most of you will be able to hear this.
Nightcliff Community Early Learning Centre was built by the Australian Government on the grounds of Nightcliff Primary School in the Northern Territory. In mid-2014, our service became a part of a partnership between the Nightcliff Primary School and Child Australia, moving us away from the traditional model of a community service managed by Parent Committee. We're now known as the Nightcliff Early Learning Centre. As a result of this change, there was a high turnover of staff, and this left many families feeling disconnected. With our new approved provider came new policies, new procedures, a new quality improvement plan, as well as new expectations of the team. So we renewed our focus on building better communication and relationships with the families. The goal of this new renewed focus was to achieve better outcomes for children. And this is where KidsMatter came in. As we learned about the KidsMatter framework, we became more aware of our own mental health and the mental health of our educators. As our service had just been through massive changes, we were initially a bit hesitant to ask our educators to learn about and implement yet another framework. After all, some educators were only just getting used to the early years learning framework and what it means to embed that framework into their documentation. Finding time to learn more about KidsMatter, so it didn't become just another code or tick box in our documentation, was a challenge. But we thought that if we were going to do KidsMatter, we wanted to do it properly. We're still working on getting the balance right for our new team. But small steps are better than no steps. KidsMatter is flexible and we want to use the components that are relevant to our context. And KidsMatter allows for this. It's one of the things we like the best. Our leadership team works hard to ensure educators aren't overwhelmed. We continue to have professional conversations and celebrate our successes. And our KidsMatter Northern Territory Facilitator is our constant mentor and motivator. With these supports, we feel confident that we will be able to implement KidsMatter for the benefit of all the children, families and educators at our service.
Okay, so that's stopped now, Leanne, and I'll hand back over to you now. And there is a question around how much people are involved in change processes, whether it can be a whole team or does it have to work a different way?
Well, certainly it's good to have most people on board as much as possible, but it is also good to have, to protect some of your staff as well too, because some people can be quite overwhelmed. So interesting question from Lynette about that particular service. And I'd also like to say thank you so much to Joe and Zoe from Nightcliff Early Learning Centre for their story there. And they've actually developed a really lovely PowerPoint for us as well too about their service and how they've gone through change. So keep an eye out on that, and so you'll be able to find out a little bit more information on how they actually how they changed. So let's have a look at some features of successful change. So we know that change influences the team and the individuals within it. So Gillian Rod lists some features of successful change. We need to anticipate change and start with small changes. Everyone's informed about the reasons of the changes. Choose the right time for change to occur. You certainly don't want to be changing things up when people are struggling. You need to choose the right time. Encourage support from the majority of the team. So you might not have everybody on board, but if you've got the majority, you can actually help mentor and support those people who are resistant and are struggling. Everyone should have a sense of ownership and know why the change is taking place. Perhaps you might need to put in some training to help support those changes. And also having the support of management and leadership as well too. Scaffolding the process as well. How does it fit in with existing policies and procedures and practice? How can they be integrated or even embedded? Provide continued opportunities for feedback and for recognition. But we also need to be mindful and take care of ourselves and our team when change occurs, because change can be quite stressful for some people. All right, let's have a listen to you and find out, how do you feel when changes occur? I know somebody mentioned before that they really like change, but for some people it can be quite unsettling.
Okay, I've just popped that up. So there's a few options here. We'd like everyone to think about a recent change that you've experienced and how you reacted. So there's the option, I jumped right in, I resisted, I found out as much information as possible, and I was wary about change. And something else, and we would love to hear what those something else's are in the chat as well. And I've been watching the chat while you've been speaking, Leanne, and a thing that's coming through is that change is hard at times, and I guess all change has an element of potentially loss, and it's felt in different ways amongst different people, and that's got to do with personality. It's also got to do with our positions of where we're working and how involved we are in that decision making around the change process as well.
Definitely.
So I'll stop the poll now. And we might find that for different changes, we do things differently. But for the change that each of the individuals in our team were actually thinking about, the standout winner was the find out as much information as possible.
Yeah, and Janelle, she's sort of said, if the reason for the change is explained, it's much easier for people to accept that. And that's what I said. That's what I mentioned before about being transparent and making sure that people understand the reason for the change, and not being surprised about it as well too. Yeah.
And I think it's also there's that important to acknowledge that this change, even when we've agreed to it happening, it might not always happen how we intended, but also it will be hard even if we are making a change. There will be times where we want to return to old routines and practices, those sort of things.
That's right, and I think ongoing conversations as well too, to make sure that, you know, even as you're going through that change and even after change, to see how people are actually coping and how they're going. Thank you.
Communication and relationships. Bye.
Yeah. Thank you. So some of the things that we can do to actually help to cope with stress or change is to change our perception about stress in general. So it doesn't have to be bad. How can we cope with it? Change your thinking to be more positive and rational rather than resisting. Try to keep your sense of humour. Learn to tolerate uncertainty in life because we can't control everything, but don't dwell on past mistakes because you can't change them. Learn to anticipate change because constant change is inevitable. Identify and develop the necessary skills to perform your job efficiently. Improve the communication skills that are related to stress management, perhaps expressing your feelings appropriately and dealing with incidents as they occur. And if you feel overwhelmed, don't keep it to yourself. Perhaps contact a mentor or chat to a supportive friend. One of our blog posts talks about taking care of yourself as well too. Just having a quick look in the chat. Change is a very long journey. Yes, it is. Thanks, Anne. Others stay on the journey and others jump out. Yep, and if it doesn't work out, just keep trying and seeing how people are going as well too. And it's okay. As I said, it's okay to fail. And then to get back on
part of the plan, do review process, isn't it, Leanne?
That's right, exactly. So my challenge working in teams as well, and I think we've all been there, had great teams and not so great teams and learnt a lot from it. So these are some of my reflections that I have from working in teams, that we all have a wide range of personalities. So some people are introverted, extroverted, you know, cope with changes easily or not so easily. Being in a team can be challenging. You need to be very reflective on how you approach things. And you can't do it on your own. You need supportive colleagues and role models to guide you in the right direction. It takes a lot of time and effort to be respected and regarded as part of a team. And you also need to be very, very, very patient. So let's have a look. I'd like you to go away from this webinar with a toolbox of information, but also a bit of a plan on what you're going to do to help support yourself and your team in the future. So what's one thing that we can do as a group to support effective teamwork, perhaps straight away this week, or given that it's Thursday, maybe next week, this month, this year, and perhaps one thing that I could do personally to be an effective team member, and jotting those down somewhere and perhaps reflecting on them later on down the track. And lastly, what I'd like to leave you with is a beautiful Northern Territory sunset. So I'd like you to continue, as I said, reflecting on your role as a team member as well too. And perhaps we could take away some lessons from geese who actually work together as a team to get on their journey. Thank you very much for joining me today and learning about teams. I really appreciate your attendance today and your feedback and your support as well too, and your contributions to our chat box as well. Thanks, Amelia.
Excellent. Thanks, Leanne. You're not going anywhere just yet. You can sit with me while we talk for a little bit. I just want to share with everyone that Leanne actually took this photo when she was out fishing. So it's pretty fantastic. And I think we could definitely take some information away from the geese. Now, as we're moving on, Leanne's spoken a little bit about next steps that we can do as a group or individually. I'd also like to just highlight to everyone that KidsMatter Early Childhood has lots of different ways of connecting and supporting team development through the different resources that we've got. And one of the first ways you could potentially do it, if you're not already involved, is to actually officially get started as a KidsMatter participating school or service. And there are workshops available to get the ball rolling, and there will also be a webinar towards the end of next month, almost a month away, where we can get the ball rolling for everyone to become official participants in KidsMatter Early Childhood. So there's some links on the screen, and you can actually click on those, and it should open up a new tab in your browser, so you could go straight on and sign up to either a workshop or a webinar afterwards. But it's also, if you are already involved in KidsMatter Early Childhood and working through the professional learning components, because KidsMatter is made up of a framework that is based on 4 components, we've given you a couple of tips for where you could go next if you're looking to action a bit more around how you can support your team. So in component 1, there's an ebook that links the ways that we think KidsMatter can support the creation of community with the National Quality Framework. So it might be worth checking that out. In component 2, a brand new component 2 professional learning topics have now gone up on the website, and you can also click on this box and get sent straight there. And the topic 4 in component 2 is around creating a community of learners. So that's looking specifically at what you can do as a team and as educators to support each other and support your own continuous improvement and learning around early childhood mental health. And then in component 3, there's a podcast that could be a really good tool for you to listen to as a team around connectedness, and that's a yarn that's been created, so it's an audio tool that you could reflect about. And then finally, there's a blog post, and one of the common goals that we have as educators is to support children when they may be experiencing difficulties. So there's a blog about what we can do as a team, and some of that is around observation and how to communicate across teams and within teams about the next steps, and also what we're noticing. So hopefully some of that information will be useful for you to progress your team connectedness through KidsMatter Early Childhood. So we will be leaving shortly, and I would like to thank you all again for attending tonight, and repeat Leanne's sentiments around thanking everyone for their contributions in the chat. I'd also like to thank the members of our team again who helped support people through all those things. In a moment, Leanne and I will be leaving you, and the rest of our team will be leaving you as well. But we'd like you to remain in the space and complete the exit survey that's available to you. That's a tool that you'll be able to actually receive the certificates through. If you've registered, you should get a certificate anyway, but if you're perhaps watching with members of your team that didn't register and you're sharing a screen, it's really important that you complete that. We've also got some questions in there around whether or not you'd like to be contacted around getting started to become KidsMatter Early Childhood team. So just a reminder that you can keep continuing conversations with us at KidsMatter Early Childhood via Facebook, Twitter and our blog. But also I'd like to draw your attention to the KidsMatter Early Childhood webinars. The webinars have now been scheduled, and registrations are open for all our webinars between now and June 30 next year. So we've done that to help you in your planning for your professional learning as well. And at the end of the day, if you do have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to contact us via email. So I'll say goodbye to you now, tonight, and we look forward to seeing you at the next webinar. See you soon,
everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.